Hi guys, VVG here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a sew along to my new Simplicity pattern 3167. We're going to be working on View B, the pants. Let's get started. Alright guys, we're working on my fall pattern 3167. We're working on View B, which is the pants. Remember that the back of the envelope always gives you a list of suggested fabrics and also any notions that you're going to need. Let's go through the pattern pieces you need to cut. For the waistband, you're going to need pattern piece number 18. You're going to cut 2 of fabric, 1 of interfacing. You're going to cut pattern piece number 17. You're going to cut 2 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. And then you're going to need to cut pattern piece number 19. You're going to cut 2 on the fold and you're cutting 1 of interfacing. For the fly front, you're going to cut pattern piece number 11. This is our right fly. You're going to cut 1. You're going to cut pattern piece number 10. This is our left fly facing, and you're going to cut 1 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. For the front pockets, you're going to cut pattern piece number 9. This is the side, front, and pocket. You're going to cut 2. Then you're going to cut the pocket facing, pattern piece number 8. You're going to cut 2 out of lining. Okay, for our back welt pocket, you're going to cut pattern piece number 14. This is our back pocket. You're going to cut 1. You're also going to cut pattern piece number 15. This is our back pocket facing, and you're going to cut 1 of lining. You're going to cut pattern piece number 13. This is our welt. You're going to cut 1 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. It's really important that you mark all of the dots that you see on your pattern pieces. For our belt loops, you're going to cut pattern piece number 16, and you're going to cut 1. And then for our main piece, you're going to cut pattern piece number 12. This is the back of our pant. You're going to cut 2. Please make sure that you're transferring all your notches and dots, especially for your dart at the top and also for your welt pocket. And pattern piece number 7, this is our pant front. You're going to cut 2. Again, make sure that you're transferring all of your notches, dots that you see, and of course our front pleats. All right guys, once you have everything interfaced and properly marked, we can start sewing. Okay, so I want you guys to go ahead and make the darts. You have darts in your front and back pattern pieces at the knee. So you're going to go ahead and make those darts. And then on your back pattern pieces, you have a waist dart. So you want to make sure and do those darts as well. Once you're done with your darts, go ahead and press them properly. And we're going to go ahead and start with our fly front. So I have both my fly front pieces. I like to serge the crotch on both the front and the back before I do anything else. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our fly front pieces. The first thing you want to do is grab your right front. We're going to go ahead and press along that fold line. So I'm going to go ahead and turn and press. Okay, so I have both my fronts, right sides are facing. I like to go ahead and stitch my crotch together because I just put my inseam I sew my inseams just a little differently, and so I just like to do this instead of just doing like a portion of it like the instructions have you. And then you have a dot, so make sure and put a pin through that dot. You're gonna stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, on the right front, we pressed under along that fold line. We're gonna go ahead and grab our zipper and we're gonna place it so the fold line is close to where the zipper teeth are. And I'm just gonna pin. Okay, now we're gonna head to the sewing machine and we're gonna stitch close to the edge. Okay, so we have gone ahead and stitched the right side and we stitched from the top to the dot. Now, I'm not going to do the right fly just yet, right? The under piece. I'm going to instead grab my left fly and I'm going to, with the right sides facing, we're going to go ahead and pin. You have notches, so make sure that you're aligning your notches. And go ahead and pin. we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. From the top, we're stopping at the dot. Okay, after understitching, we're going to go ahead and press this. And I'm going to go ahead and lay my zipper flat, grab some pins, and then pinning through the zipper tape and the fly only, I'm just going to go ahead and pin this in place. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch through the zipper tape and the fly. Okay, so we could go ahead and close our zipper. We're going to go ahead and top stitch, but first I'm just going to put a pin right at the center front fold just so that I could keep things in place and they don't shift while I top stitch. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do our top stitching. If you want, you can use your pattern piece, just turn under that seam allowance, place it over the top, and then transfer your marking, and you can use that as a guide on the sewing machine. Okay, once your top stitching is done, I'm going to set this aside just a sec. I'm going to go ahead and grab my right fly. With right sides facing, you're going to go ahead and stitch along the bottom to close this out, and then we're going to turn it right side out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clip some of this off. Turn this to the right side, give it a press. And then if you'd like, you can go ahead and finish this edge off with your serger. Okay, I've gone ahead and serged, and then you might notice that I gave myself a stitching guide. This is 5/8 of an inch from the cut edge. The reason I do that is so I know exactly where to place my zipper teeth. I'm going to go ahead and open out my zipper. I'm going to place the zipper teeth along my stitching guide. And I'm just going to pin in place. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine, and following your existing stitching, you're just going to stitch through all layers and go down as far as you can. Okay, and now if you'd like, you can go ahead and do a little stitching right here to go through all layers and secure your right fly in place. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the pleats. So you should have marked where your pleats are, and we're going to go ahead and be folding towards the fly. So bring your lines or your notches or however you mark them together. And then you have another set of lines. You want to bring those together. Okay, you're going to do the same thing to the other side, and then I just want you to run over to your machine and just tack these in place. Okay, now that we have our pleats done, we're going to go ahead and start on our pocket. So grab your pocket facings, and with right sides facing, you have a notch, so match that notch up. You're going to do the other pocket the same way we do this one. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and pin your other facing to the other pocket so you can do both while at the machine. And then you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then I want you to trim your seam. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim this seam allowance down a bit. Okay, now run over to your machine and go ahead and understitch. Make sure that the seam allowance is facing your pocket facing. Then you're gonna turn that under, give it a press, and I want you to top stitch. So just like you see that I've done here, pressed to the inside and then top stitched my pocket. Okay, let's go ahead and grab our pocket. And right sides are facing. I'm gonna go ahead and align my pocket. I'm pinning only through the pocket and pocket facing. Let's head to the sewing machine. We're gonna stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then you can go ahead and serge off your seam allowance. Okay, I have gone ahead and serged my pocket. Now, with the right sides facing me, I'm gonna lay this down, make sure it's laying flat, and I'm just gonna pin here at the top and here on the side. You're gonna go to the sewing machine and you just wanna tack the pocket facing down to the pocket, right? So right at the pant, and then here on the side, you wanna just go ahead and stitch these together. You're gonna do that for both your pockets. All right, so for now, we're done with our fronts. You can go ahead and set this aside for a bit. We're gonna go ahead and work on our right back and our welt pocket. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in for you guys. Now, you can see that I've transferred my dots, but then I also made a line. I just find it easier and more accurate to be able to pin this if I have a line on all of my pieces. So I have a line on the pocket facing and I have a line on the welt. Now, the cut edge, okay, is up, the folded edge is down. We're gonna go ahead, place the pocket facing over the top of the welt, and the easiest way for me to match this up is to put a pin through the pocket facing and then match it up to the dot on the welt, and I'm gonna pin. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Through the pocket facing, matching it up to the dot on the welt, and pin. I also want to make sure that the line is aligned, so I'm going to put a pin through the line on my pocket facing, matching it up to the line that's on my welt, and pin. Okay, we're going to head to the sewing machine. It's really important that we start and stop exactly at the dots. We're going to follow this guide. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pant. Okay, now we're going to match up this line to the bottom line that we have here, okay? So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put my pin through where my dot is, making sure it aligns to the dot on the pant, and I'm gonna pin. And same thing on this side. I'm going to match that dot and pin. And I'm going to do the same thing in the middle. Now, just because this stresses me out, I'm going to do a couple more. Okay, great. Now we're gonna go ahead and following that existing stitching line, we're gonna go ahead and stitch through all layers. Okay, so now we have attached this part to our pant. I'm gonna go ahead and trim half of this seam allowance. Now you're gonna grab your other pocket, okay? This is your facing, this is your pocket. And we're gonna go ahead and align this top line to the top line you have here on your pants. Make sure that the raw edge, this flat edge, is facing down. Don't place it like this, okay? So make sure that it's facing down, so right sides are facing, but that the pockets are facing in the direction you see on camera. I'm gonna do the same little thing, so let me turn this around to work. And I'm gonna do the same thing with my pins. Okay, head to the sewing machine, stitch from dot to dot. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this seam allowance. Now we have to cut in between our bounding box. So I'm gonna turn this over to the wrong side. I can see my stitching. I'm gonna give myself a line right along the middle. Now, we're gonna cut, but we're not cutting all the way to where we see the end of our stitching, okay? We're gonna stop. I like to stop at least a ½ inch before I reach here because we're gonna cut diagonally into those corners. Now you could take your scissors. I like to fold this in half and then start the initial cut. And then I'm gonna cut. And then I'm gonna cut diagonally towards my stitching. Don't cut through your stitching. Same thing on the other side. We're gonna go ahead and push this all to the inside. So first I like to press, it just, I don't know, makes things easier for me, I think. Okay, I'm gonna put this to the inside. Push your pocket facing through the hole. And now you're gonna push your welt to the inside, okay? So let me see if I can get close for you guys. So that little area goes pushed to the inside. And then here, you'll notice you have this little diamond. You're gonna stitch through all layers along the lining. Don't catch the pant because you'll create a little pleat. You want to stitch only through the little diamond that you see and the other layers below it. Okay, same thing with that little triangle. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch. Okay, once our little triangles are sewn, all you have to do is go ahead and continue sewing around the pocket and then serge your seam allowance. Okay, we are all done with our welt pocket. We can go ahead and start joining our front to back. Okay, so I'm gonna lay both my back pant legs together and I'm going to pin along the crotch. Okay, now using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're gonna go ahead and stitch. Okay, I've gone ahead and placed my front and my back right sides facing. I'm going to go ahead and align the crotch seams. And I'm going to pin. And then I'm just going to go ahead and pin along the inseam. And then do the same thing along the other side. Okay, once you have your entire inseam pinned, we're going to go ahead to the sewing machine. I like to start at the crotch and sew one way down and then start again at the center of the inseam and then work my way down the other side. Okay guys, once our inseam is done, we're going to go ahead and pin our side seam. You're going to do the other side seam the same way. Okay, pin your other side seam, then we're going to head to the sewing machine starting at the hem. We're going to work our way up using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right guys, once you have done your side seams, go ahead, try the pants on, make sure it fits at the waist, that everything looks fine. We can set this aside for just a second. We're going to start working on our belt carriers. I'm going to fold to the inside and then fold again to the inside so they meet in the middle, and I'm going to press all the way down. Then we're going to fold one more time. Now we're going to go ahead and fold again. You can press this one more time if you want, or we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're just going to stitch along the edge. Then we're going to do a little edge stitching on the other side. Once your carriers are sewn, we're going to go ahead and cut these at 3 1/4. You should have 5 belt carriers. Let's go ahead and place our belt loops. So you should have little dots that you marked. I'm just going to go ahead and pin. And then the remaining 3 go in the back. Head to your sewing machine and go ahead and tack your belt loops in place. Belt loops are done. Let's go ahead and attach our waistband pieces. So we're going to go ahead and align the side seam notch and pin. You're going to do the same thing for your waistband facing pieces. You're going to pin them the same way. Then you're going to head to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I went ahead and pressed my seams open. Now we're going to attach it to our pants. I like to match my side seams first, so I'm going to do that. You're just going to go ahead and continue pinning all the way around until your waistband is pinned to the waist of your pant. Once your waistband is pinned in place, we're going to head to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now we're going to go ahead and press our seams up, okay, towards the waistband. I might actually trim some of it. Now, one thing I like to do before I continue, in case I need to make any adjustments here, this seam on either side should be perfectly aligned. So close your zipper, lay it over the top, and make sure, one, that this isn't pulling, because your fly should never be pulling. You should never see any part of the zipper. And this seam here and this seam here should be perfectly aligned. I've gone ahead and finished the bottom of my waistband facing. I just went ahead and serged. We're going to place this over the top of our waistband. And we're going to go ahead and pin. Again, I start at the side seams. You're going to continue pinning all the way around. Let's head to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch all the way around using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then we're going to go ahead and close the front openings. At the machine, you saw me close out the front and also do our understitching. Now we're going to go ahead and clip into these corners to remove some of this. I want you to go ahead and press your waistband facing down. Then we're going to go ahead, pin and stitch in the ditch. I've pinned my waistband facing in place as I pressed it. Now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch in the ditch. Let's go ahead and finish off our belt loops. I've turned under 3/8 of an inch. It says 1/4, but I find 3/8 is easier to hold on to. I'm going to go ahead and fold and then hold this. And at the sewing machine, I'm just going to top stitch. You're going to do that for all of your belt loops. Once you have your belt loops on, all you have left to do is to make your buttonhole and attach your button. Try the pants on to make sure the length is good. You're going to finish off the hem, and once you do that, you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed these sew-alongs. Please make sure and follow on social media if you're not already at Mimi G Style, and tag me so I can see all of your amazing makes. Until next time, peace.